Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my September wrap up. So I read 19 books in the month of September. I honestly don't know how I did that, but I'm super proud of myself because that is the most books that I've read in a month all year. But I'm so excited to talk about all of these books with you. I feel like you already know most of them because I did a lot of reading vlogs in September, but I hope you guys are excited for this video anyways. Make sure to subscribe down below if you have not yet already. But without further ado, let's just get into all the 19 books that I read in September. So the first book that I read in September was The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. This was a reread for me. So I was like low-key buddy reading this with my friend Alyssa, and I've been wanting to reread this book for months, okay, like months. Like all I could think about was this book, but we knew that we wanted to read it in September, so we had to wait, but I read it, and this was my first time actually reading the finished copy of it because when I first read it, I read the ARC. The second time I read it, I listened to the audiobook. So this was my first time actually experiencing it as a final book with all the illustrations that are in it at the beginning of each part. I also annotated it. There are so many annotations in there. Like wild. I had so much fun annotating this book. It just really added to the experience. It was just so much fun. I love annotating V.E. Schwab books because her writing is just so beautiful. So there were so many great lines in this book that I could highlight and like take note of and write about, and it was just so much fun. Also, I feel like I just have to mention that the foreword that is in this special anniversary edition written by V.E. Schwab made me cry. Like, it was so good. It's absolutely stunning. I was like video chatting Alyssa when we started reading this book, and I read the entire foreword to her out loud, and it was like such a magical experience. But yeah, love this book, love this story, love her writing, love these characters. Addie and Henry have my entire heart. Yeah, obsessed with this book, but I've already talked about this many times on my channel, so we're just gonna move right along. Also, I'm doing this kind of in order of when I read them, but I read a couple of series in September, and I read them not necessarily back to back, so I'm just gonna lump them all together just to kind of make this video easier on myself. But I read the first 3 books in the Pages and Co series by Anna James. So you guys saw me read the Book Wonders in my fall reading vlog, and if you haven't yet seen that vlog, I'll link it up above in the cards for you because it was one of my favorite videos that I've made so far this year. It was a lot of fun, and this was the first book that I read for that video. So we have the Book Wonders, and then we have book 2, which is the Lost Fairy Tales, and then we have book 3, the Map of Stories. So this is a really fun middle grade series about a main character who can literally like step into books and like bring things out of books. It's super interesting. This isn't the entire series. My library didn't have the rest of them, and I believe it's like still an ongoing book series, like books are still being published. But out of these first 3, I can't decide out of these 2 which one is my favorite. I feel like I'm gonna just have a soft spot for the first one because it is the first book. I usually do have a soft spot for first books in series, and I really liked this one. But I think I might have liked the second one a little bit more. Oh, I don't know. They're pretty like equal in my head. I think this one just kind of expanded on the world a little bit more, but I really liked the introduction to the world. Plus this one like took place during fall, and it just like gave me the best vibes. This one I will say was my least favorite out of the 3. That I know for sure. They had like real people in this book. Like they had like William Shakespeare, and like there was another like famous author in there, and I didn't like how they were like an actual character in the story. Like I feel like I could accept like fictional characters being a part of their story, like Anne Shirley and Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Like I feel like I could get on board with that, but the William Shakespeare one was just not my favorite. But overall, I really liked this series. It was so much fun. If you want to see my like actual thoughts on this one in particular, then I do recommend watching my fall vlog, and I am looking forward to eventually finishing the series. I just don't know when that's going to be possible, but it was just like a super fun time. The next series I actually have 2 vlogs technically for, and it is the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. So I read the first book, Truly Devious, in that start of fall reading vlog. Instantly became obsessed with it, and so I decided to vlog me reading the second and third books, The Vanishing Stare and The Hand on the Wall. So I'll also link that video for you guys to watch. And then after that I ended up reading The Box in the Woods. When I was filming the reading vlog for these 2 books, I was actually going to include this one in there like at the end. It wasn't my like original plan to do that, but I almost added it in at the end. Like I even filmed some clips for it, but then I really needed this video to go up, and I wasn't done this book yet, and so so I decided to just like close it as I had originally planned, and I decided to upload it with just these 2 books in it. And I'm really glad that I did that because I did not like this one as much. But this has become one of my new favorite series. I'm like absolutely obsessed with it. Let me just hold up the first book here for a second. I'm not gonna go too much into it, obviously, because I do have reading vlogs for the first 3 books, but I have been wanting to read this series for years now. So many people told me to read it. It was super popular on Booktube for a long while, and I just like never got around to it. I bought this copy years ago and just never got around to it, but I put it on my 2022 TBR this year because I knew that I wanted to read it. And I was really hoping that I would like it, but I don't think I anticipated liking it quite as much as I did. I'm just completely in love with this cast of characters, and the mystery was really fun. It kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Stevie and David have my entire heart, and Nate, fuck, I love Nate so much. I feel like we are one and the same, like we are the same human. Yeah, I really loved the series. I don't think I have a favorite between the like first 3 books, like this little like core trilogy. I don't think I have a favorite. I loved them all so much. Yeah, like I don't think I could pick a favorite. Like I thoroughly just enjoyed almost binge reading this series because I did take a break in between the first and the second, but I just had so much fun reading them. They were such quick and fun reads, and I was like literally thoroughly invested in it. So I do recommend watching the vlogs where I read these books, because I filmed some of my reactions to like actual parts of the book. Like I was filming myself when I was reading, and I had some pretty funny reactions, so I definitely recommend watching those. But since I didn't vlog me reading The Box in the Woods, I thought I would talk about it a little bit more. This one still follows Stevie, who is the main character in Truly Devious, and I did not know that when I was originally reading the series. I thought it was like a spin-off, and then when I finally looked it up, I was like, oh no, like this still follows Stevie. So this series follows Stevie at Ellingham Academy and trying to like close this cold case that took place at the academy in the 30s. So this one takes place over summer. So since the Ellingham Academy case is resolved in those 3 books, she's kind of feeling lost in this book and like feels like her life's purpose is over. Then she ends up being called to the summer camp to solve a cold case there, where all these camp counselors were killed one year. But this one's a bit more recent, a bit more fresh. There are still like people who are involved in the case alive, whereas in Truly Devious everybody was like dead because it was from the 30s. So this one has a bit of a different feel to it. We're obviously not at the academy. We have different dynamics going on, and also the case is solved in this one book. I will say that I did enjoy myself while reading this book. Like I had a great time, but I low-key guessed who the killer was. I didn't know like how or why or like whatever, but I wasn't like concretely like set on it either. Like I kind of just had this like fleeting moment of like, oh, I think that's the killer. I don't know why, but like I just get the vibe. But then I was like, maybe not. Like I don't know why they would have done it, so I wasn't like holding on to it super tightly. But then like when it was revealed at the end, I was like, okay, but like I kind of guessed it. It didn't have me like super disappointed, but like I literally didn't guess in Truly Devious until like the last possible second, and even then I had like 2 options that I think it could have been. But just overall, I feel like I wasn't quite as invested in this mystery as I was in the Ellingham ones, and I also just really loved the setting of the academy in the first 3 books, so the summer camp just didn't quite hit the same. I still really loved it, like don't get me wrong. I feel like I just kind of got like a bitter taste in my mouth at the end, because I was like, oh, like that was kind of a little lackluster. I feel like the reveal happened really quickly, and I feel like we as readers weren't let in on Stevie's like thought process, so it kind of feels like she didn't know at all what was happening 1 second, and then she knew all of the answers like 2 seconds later, and I'm like, well, we weren't like clued in on anything. And I feel like that wasn't necessarily the case in the first 3 books. Like I feel like we did get to see like nuggets of her figuring it out, and then like the big reveal happened. I don't feel like we got any little nuggets. Maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like we just, you know, just jumped right on into it. Still really enjoyed it though. I still love these characters. It just, I don't know, it didn't quite feel the same. And I know that there's one more book coming out, I think there's only one more, and that one at least starts off at Ellingham Academy, I think, but then I think they go abroad somewhere, so I'm also anticipating not loving that one as much, but who knows. But overall, this has become one of my new favorite series. I am absolutely obsessed with it, which just makes me so happy because I feel like it's been a really long time since I've become obsessed with a series. So love this. Super glad that I read all of these books in the month of September. And then I also read Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan in that same start of fall reading vlog. I'm not going to talk about this one for very long because I feel like I did talk about all of my feelings in that vlog. I've been wanting to read this since I was like 14, and I just never got around to picking it up. So I was really excited to finally like sit down and read it. It did not live up to my expectations. I wanted cozy fall vibes, bookstore vibes, and instead there was just like a lot of like tech stuff, like a lot of coding and just like, I don't know, like it wasn't what I was wanting. Like I said in the vlog, I think that there are people who obviously could enjoy this book. It's just not what I was wanting from it. I wanted more story life of AJ Fickery vibes, and that's just not what I got from this. So unfortunately, I did not like this one, and honestly, I am still thoroughly heartbroken about it. And then after that, I read the first 4 volumes in the Locke and Key graphic novel series. These are by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. So I read volume 1, Welcome to Lovecraft. I read volume 2, Head Games. I read volume 3, Crown of Shadows. And then I read volume 4, Keys to the Kingdom. There are, I believe, 6 core volumes in this graphic novel series, but I really wasn't enjoying them, so I gave up on them, even though I only had 2 more left to read. I absolutely love the Netflix series for these graphic novels, but the graphic novels just did not hit the same for me. The story's a bit different, and the art style just wasn't my favorite. I didn't love how the characters looked. I much prefer how they look in the show, and I don't know. I just much preferred the TV show to these, so I ended up giving up on them, and I'm still sad about it. But at least I still have the TV show. I adore it so much, so it was a letdown that I didn't like these. But I also read these as a part of the Start of Fall reading vlog. So like I said, I vlogged most of my readings this month. So I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I listened to this on audiobook, which I highly recommend if you're going to read this book, if you have access to the audiobook, because Jeanette McCurdy reads it herself. So that was a really great experience to actually hear it coming from her voice instead of just like reading it on a page. I'm gonna be honest, this book was hard to listen to. There are a lot of trigger warnings for this book, a lot of talk of eating disorders, and like very like in detail, kind of like graphic details about her eating disorder. She had anorexia and bulimia, so just be aware of that going into it. There's obviously a lot of talk of abuse from her mother, not like physical abuse done to her, but like emotional abuse. Just lots of things in this book to be wary of. But I'm so glad that I did listen to it, because I feel like, as most of us did, we grew up watching shows like iCarly, where Jeanette McCurdy was one of the stars. I wasn't like a huge fan of iCarly. Like, I enjoyed it, but I was kind of like a casual viewer of it. I've only seen the show all the way through once. I never really got into Sam and Cat, which was the spin-off show, because I didn't really care about Cat, because I never watched Victorious, so I just didn't really care about it. But I still liked Jeanette McCurdy growing up. I did watch iCarly, so it's just kind of wild to listen to this book and just find out all of these things about Jeanette McCurdy, things that she was going through while on the show, before the show, after the show, to find out that she didn't actually want to be an actor, and her mom kind of like forced her into it, and she just wanted to like please her mom. It was just absolutely wild to learn all of these things, and it just really proves that like you don't really know what people are going through, especially celebrities. Like, no matter how much you think you know them, you don't. But I'm really glad that Jeanette McCurdy is like doing okay now, and she was able to write this book and get all of her thoughts and feelings out and to share her story with the world. So I'm really glad that I read this book. I'm really glad that I went the audiobook route with it, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about it recently because I feel like everybody has read it, but I'm just really glad that I did read it. Okay, so the next 2 books I read were also for a reading vlog, and it was the last video that I uploaded. So I read the Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, and Maureen Johnson. I guess I had like a bit of a Maureen Johnson heavy reading month. I didn't even like plan that, but that's kind of funny. And then I also read The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. So I read both of these as a part of my Cassie Clare Catch Up Part 2 reading vlog. So again, if you have not yet seen that vlog, I do highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun, but I specifically read this one as a part of the like Shadowhunter read along. It was the September book. So I read both of these, and I wasn't expecting to really like either of them. I still didn't really like this one, but I definitely enjoyed this one more than I thought I was going to. It's definitely like my least favorite of the short story collections in the Shadowhunter universe, but I think those last few stories in this collection really made it for me, and I feel like if they weren't there, I really wouldn't have liked this. And this one, I'm just not a huge fan of this series, honestly, which just breaks my heart because I love Alec and Magnus, but I do think I enjoyed this one a bit more than I enjoyed the Red Scrolls of Magic, which is the first book in this little series. But yeah, like out of these 2, I definitely enjoyed this one more, shockingly enough. But yeah, if you want to know more of my thoughts and like in-time reactions to these, then I definitely recommend watching that reading vlog. Okay, and then the next 2 books I don't want to talk about too much because I am filming a reading vlog for it and it's not out yet. But I read 2 like spooky Halloween-y books. So I read The Glass Witch by Lindsay Puckett. This one comes out October 18th, so very, very soon. And I have an arc for it, obviously. And then I read Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. So, like I said, not going to talk about these because I don't want to spoil the vlog, but fun times. And then the last book that I read in the month of September was White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This was another audiobook listen for me. I'm a huge fan of Tiffany D. Jackson. I have some of her books right here. Like, I'm obsessed with her. This was her first horror novel. Like, these ones are more like thriller mysteries, I would say, whereas this one was just like straight up horror. And I believe it came out last year, and I wasn't gonna read it because I'm not really into like horror novels, but I was trying to find something to listen to, and I saw that this one was available, and then I saw that it was kind of like a haunted house story, so that kind of piqued my interest. I do love like haunted house stuff, so I figured I would give it a listen. And I'm glad that I went the audiobook route, because I feel like I might not have enjoyed it as much if I read it physically, just because I feel like the narrator did such a good job narrating all of like the creepy parts. But overall, I did not love this book. But I think in general I've heard pretty like mixed things about this one, but like for the most part I enjoyed this book. Like, I enjoyed my time listening to it. But for being marketed as like a haunted house book, this might be a spoiler, but like the house wasn't actually haunted, so I was kind of really let down by that fact, and so it kind of just made like the whole like back half of the book not as enjoyable for me, because like I wanted there to be ghosts, you know, and there weren't any ghosts. Like, overall it was fine, but I just, again, like, I wanted more out of it. I wanted there to be like an actual haunted house and not just like whatever ended up happening that I'm not gonna say because that's a true spoiler. But I'm just like, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world, and I think I'm gonna stick to her other books. But yeah, those were all of the 19 books that I read in the month of September. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know what you guys read in the month of September, or if you've read any of the books that I read, and let me know your thoughts on them. Again, subscribe if you have not yet already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!